Hey, hotelier, you already know that OTAs are expensive. You've done the math, you've sat in that budget meeting, you've even watched the commission line grow. And now ownership wants to know what you're doing about it because they are concerned about cost. Well, today I want to answer a question that sounds simple, but it just isn't. If we know what it costs, why does the number keep climbing? The OTA share of independent hotel bookings just hit 64.3% in North America. That's up 3.3 points from last year, and that's straight from the Cloudbeds State of Independent Hotels 2026 report. So when I saw that, the number really stopped me, and I thought to myself, I better go ask hoteliers directly because I have lots of ideas why this would increase. It also kind of contradicts some other messages that we had heard about AI in 2025. So, anyways, I posted a poll on LinkedIn, and the results, well, they tell the real story. In fact, a lot of the comments told a deeper story. But here it was. 35% said it's easy, it's our go-to. The other 35% said there's no bandwidth to change it. 20% said marketing feels risky and unclear. And only 10% said the OTAs actually do a better job. So when we read that all together, the story really starts to emerge. And that story is that most hotels aren't on the OTAs because they looked at every other option and said, well, we choose the OTAs. They're obviously the most expensive distribution channel. They're on there because the OTAs have a familiarity. They've made it incredibly easy for you to distribute inventory and rates. And quite frankly, everything else other than that feels pretty hard. So that pattern shows up everywhere. It's Uber Eats for restaurants. It's OTAs for hotels. A third party makes the short term easier, but the long term more expensive. And here's the real reason that the middleman's cut keeps growing in our businesses. OTAs equal a known outcome, and direct channels equal an unknown outcome. Let me repeat that. OTAs are a known outcome. We know we're going to pay 25% or 30%. It's on an actual booking. Direct channels, we're investing, we're doing things, but we don't have a direct attribution cost to that. Now, there is some metrics out there, but when we compare the two with an OTA of a known outcome and direct channels of an unknown outcome, well, that's it. That's the whole thing, in my opinion. It has nothing to do with laziness. Hoteliers have been called lazy for using the OTAs, and that's not the case. I was a hotel GM myself. I, yes, use the OTAs. Even though I talk about OTAs, I'm pro management. I'm not anti OTA, but it's not laziness and it's not ignorance. It's not that the hoteliers are like, well, whatever. It's just going everywhere and it's another shelf. No, they know that. It's perception. And if something feels true for hoteliers, well, it really drives their decisions. Every day you're making decisions because of the beliefs. And maybe you believe that the OTAs have a known outcome and direct channels are an unknown. And this happens even when the numbers tell a different story. So let's look at what those numbers actually say. So I did a short case study here, and a hotel generating $6.4 million a year with a 54% OTA share, these are real numbers, pays $701,000 in commissions a year. So that's every year if they have $6.4 million in top line revenue with a 54% OTA share. A focused, well-planned marketing investment for the same property costs $170,000. So this isn't a typo, and I'm not saying that you could only invest $170,000. versus 701 in OTA commissions. But there is a balance. There is a place where you can decrease that commission and keep your $170,000 investing and compounding over time. But anyways, we'll talk about that another time. But hoteliers are choosing the costlier one over the cheaper one because the less expensive route feels like the bigger risk. And this is what this video is about. The industry data says this is actually increasing. There's pressure to get rooms booked. Of course, there's pressure to also reduce costs. Marketing doesn't solve either overnight. And in a business that's measured day to day, well, today matters. So inventory goes into the OTA and bookings come out. Sometimes costs are visible, and under pressure, this feels like control, but it is the most expensive belief in the building. So here's what I want you to hear. This isn't a choice between the OTAs or direct channels. The hotels navigating this well, they're not replacing OTAs overnight. It's not like they're saying, today we're going direct, and they're switching off their OTAs and they're opening up their direct channels or they're making investments. No, they are using a phased plan. They're building direct steadily and using the OTAs at the same time. This isn't an all or nothing thing. This is build both channels and pull the levers when you see demand shift. But anyways, that's more of a revenue management strategy. We're talking about belief today. But this type of thing, building your direct channels and using the OTAs is, it really changes the risk calculation. So you might be feeling that direct channels are risky, but this is a way to approach it in a phased way that you can start investing in your own channels that will compound over time. So right now, marketing may feel like the risky investment, and the OTAs might feel like the safe one. This is actually language that I've heard people use. This is a safer choice to go with the OTAs. But when we look at what each actually delivers, the OTA is a guaranteed cost with no upside other than you get the booking. Every booking starts at a deficit and ends at checkout. A direct channel investment, yes, has a cost too, but it builds something. It builds your own data. It builds your repeat guests. It builds future marketing opportunities. And it's a relationship that doesn't cost you every time it converts. One is an expense that repeats. The other is an investment that compounds. So when I look across the industry, I see three groups of hotels. And group one is the group that's tried marketing for a short season and then went back to the OTAs as a default. Well, we tried. That's that. Group two is the group that's just never tried at all. They have a website. They haven't touched it a really long time. They may be kind of hit and miss in their social media. They're not sending any email marketing campaigns. They're just there and they're just putting their quarters into the OTA slot machine, is what I like to say. And they sell pretty much everything exclusively through the OTAs. And then there's group number three, which is a group that I would like to work with. And they're a smaller group, but they look at the status quo and they decided that only dealing with the OTAs is actually a bigger risk. And they're building something accountable and measurable and that's easy to defend to ownership. In that third group, they didn't start with an overhaul. They started with a plan and they shifted their belief and their budget and started building something that they could actually own. So if you're watching this thinking, well, I want to act on this, but I really don't know where to start. Well, that is the most common thing that I hear. And it's exactly why I do strategy calls. It's not to pitch you, it's to help figure out what the right next move for your property is. So the link to book this is in the description. And really, we could take 15 minutes, we could take 30, whatever you want to talk about, it's your agenda. So again, the link to book some time with me and discuss OTAs or your direct channel strategy. Happy to have a conversation, no pitch, just a conversation between hoteliers. So if this video landed for you, share it with your GM, your revenue manager, or whoever sits in the budget meeting, because this type of conversation I think needs to happen more. I'm Christine Malfair. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for giving this a thumbs up and sharing it with someone you know in the hotel industry. Thanks. Have a fabulous day.